Hey everyone, Pete Calandra here. I thought I'd come on today and do a short video which will contain a section of a class I taught last week in my film scoring class. As some of you may know, I typically have been posting almost every one of my film scoring classes edited a little bit to take some of the copywritten material out that might get the video blocked, but I've been posting them every week. There was a little bit of a technical snafu on my end last week's class, and the audio quality is not so great. So it's posted up on Dropbox for the students to look at, but not good enough for YouTube in posterity. So what I was talking about is development of and transformation of ideas. And I started to talk about how you can also transform the orchestration. You can take material that has a certain character in a certain pitch register, and by pitch register I mean range. And you can change the orchestration and lower or raise the pitch register and completely change the character of the music. You can make something that sounds sweet sound more ominous and foreboding by changing the orchestration and dropping the pitch register. And so as an example of that, I have a short cue that Bernard Hermann wrote for the 1959 film Journey to the Center of the Earth, and it's called The Vines. And this is a very simple cue. It's only, it's 9 measures long and very slow rhythm. And I managed to find the handwritten orchestration and score. As some of you may know, Bernard Hermann was an anomaly amongst film composers in that he actually composed to full score paper. Most film composers of that era, pre-sequencing and DAW, typically wrote things on a 3 or 4 stave sketch score that they sent off to an orchestrator to orchestrate. Bernard Hermann wrote right to the score paper, and he did his own orchestrations. So, as many of you know, it's also very difficult to find sheet music for film scores. So you have to sort of look around. There is a company, Omni Publishing, that's starting to make random film scores available. I've been purchasing those and using those in some of my film classes. But apparently the University of California at Santa Barbara has all of Bernard Hermann's handwritten scores in their archives. And I managed to find somebody who photocopied some of the scores, some cues from different films. And I sort of have some of them. Some of them are really difficult to read because they're photocopies and made into a PDF and handwritten. And some of these scores are 40, 50 years old, 60 years old. And, they're just old and difficult to read. But this one is pretty easy to read. So let me show it to you here. And what we've got here on this score is a cue that's written for an interesting ensemble. You've got 4 clarinets, 2 bass clarinets, 4 bassoons, 2 contrabassoons, 4 trombones, 2 tubas, tam-tam, and bass drum. Now, it's very unusual to write for 4 clarinets, 4 bassoons. Not so unusual to write for 4 trombones, but my research has told me that Hermann got this technique from Wagner. And the reason that Wagner did it was so that he could write full 4-voice chords in each of these sections. And what's interesting about that is you sort of can layer these sections together to create hybrid textures. And that's different than, let's say, if you had 2 clarinets and 2 bassoons, you'd split the chord up, a 4-voice chord up 2 and 2. But here you can have all 4 notes of a 4-voice chord played in each section. And also, if you notice, it's very low pitched. Let me zoom in on this to make it a little easier for you guys to see. Let's see. That's as far as I can go. So if you look right here, you've got your tubas, they're down in this register, and your trombones are in this register. and the same with the bassoons and the contrabassoons. The clarinets are written, they're in the transposing score, so this is sounds a whole step lower than it's played, and the bass clarinet is like a tenor saxophone. It sounds a ninth lower than it's written. Sounds a second lower than it's written. It's right. You understand what I mean here. It always confuzzles me. So let's take what I've done with this. That's kind of cool. Is I've actually sequenced it, and in the description box below there's a link to some materials, and let me just show you the materials before we go on with the lesson. Right, and in the materials is that PDF, the Pro Tools session that I'm using now. You can simply replace the instruments if you don't have the instruments that I own, and an MP3 of a medley. So I guess there's 4 cues, and then the vines is the last one. Standard MIDI file right here that you can open up in any sequencer, and then I did a PDF of a piano reduction of the score, which will be easier for some of you to read. So that's all yours. It's in the link. Now, before we go on, let's just take care of a little business. If you like this video, give a thumbs up. For more content, please subscribe, and to be notified, ring that bell. If you've got any comments or questions, leave them in the description, leave them down below. And if you want to support the channel, I've got a link in the description box to my iTunes and Amazon stores. I've got a lot of music out. If you buy a single, that would greatly help me offset the cost of putting all this work together. If not, a thumbs up would be great. A subscribe would be great. And I hope you enjoy the rest of this content. All right, let's get on with it. Now, before we play the cue, let's just take a listen to a few things, and let's analyze this a little bit. So if we take a look at this music, right, we've got down here, we've got E flat and B flat, and that's doubled with the 3rd and 4th trombone. And then the 1st and 2nd trombone are playing G and D. So we've got an E flat major 7th chord, and the entire piece is made up of major 7th chords in root position, and that's moving up and down chromatically. Right? So that's the whole bit. And major 7th chords, depending upon how you voice them, very sweet, right? You hear in Antonio Carlos Jobim does a song, Watch What Happens, that has a right. So major 7ths, we typically think of them as being very sweet musically, and we're going to see here that if you take a look at, I've done a few things here before we listen to the actual cue. I've got that passage, the first 4 chords, the first measure, I've got that done for muted strings right now and transposed up an octave. Right? That has a certain character to it. Let's take a look at the frequency response. A lot of activity up here. Nice strong fundamentals. And we can then take a listen to, I've got it scored for 2 flutes, alto flutes, and 2 bass flutes, right? So it's similar to the clarinets and the bass clarinet, and I believe I've also transposed this up an octave. So let's solo the flute, and this will be in 5ths. Notice a lot of nice, strong fundamental and some strong overtones here in the series. And then the alto, let's just solo the alto flute. a little bit more complex in its overtones. And now the more pure as it goes up. Did you see that? That was interesting. And bass flute. More complex, right? Until you get some of the higher notes, and then you see those nice fundamentals and harmonics. And then the amalgamation of all of 6 of those instruments. Hey, Mondo Strat. Oh, this is the Waves PAZ analyzer. Interesting, right? Okay, let's take a listen to the actual cue, and let's see. Let me get up the great. Let's leave this right here, and let's just play this from a little beforehand, and we can listen. And now we're over here. Now to the clarinets. Now trombones. Go up a little further, and then now we add tubas right here. And let's listen to all the winds together. And that last chord. You know, I think I've made a mistake in my MIDI orchestration. Let me just try something here. I think the tubas are supposed to be an octave lower. He's got it written there. So let's do that now. Let me see if it actually plays it. I went the wrong way, didn't I? -1. And I teach this stuff? Give me a break. There we go. There we go. I see. All right, great. So that really is like an incredible sound, right? Let's listen to the trombone, the top trombone. So that's the 3rd and the 7th of the chord. And then we're adding the root and the 5th with the trombones 3 and 4. And now add the tubas an octave lower. Now, the reason that works that low pitch-wise is that everybody's playing in fifths, right? Each of these groups, the trombones 1 and 2, trombones 3 and 4, and tubas 1 and 2, they're all playing in the interval of a fifth, right? And even though the piano chords, you know, when you play the section as a cluster, like it's a close position voicing there, because they're all playing fifths, the integrity of each one of those little choirs within the brass sounds good, as opposed to, right, that gets really muddy. But because he's got it spread out in fifths like that, it works really well. And then the other thing that I want to talk about here is that, so this is obviously music. What's its purpose? This music, its purpose is something, they're moving, right? Time is passing. They're either walking, journey to the center of the earth, right? Maybe they're walking through a cave and they want something might be happening, or maybe they're seeing like strange sights that they're just passing by. And it's creating like a murky, eerie, mysterious, and almost foreboding mood. And those are our pretty major seventh chords. Because of how it's orchestrated, how he's got the voices spread out and fit in like that, and pitched down, it takes on a completely different character. And he's doing that using orchestration along with changing the pitch register. So now let's listen to our bassoons 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Right, there's bassoons are an incredibly harmonically rich sound, the double reed instruments. Let's take a listen to this. Right, you know, you can't really see a strong fundamental like you could with the flutes. But it's just such a rich sound. And then it gets passed off to the clarinets, which are a little bit more hollow. And then back to the trombones. And then we got the tuba coming in shortly. And here we go. And now all the winds together. Very complex waveform. Overtones all over the place. And then back to the brass. And then a chord that leaves a lot of questions at the end, right here. Right, that's an interesting resolution to this bit. Another concept I want to put forth is that what my students do a lot of times when they first start writing film music is they tend to keep things going with one orchestration for a long period of time. Now, obviously, if you're writing something for a string ensemble, the strings are going to be sounding, but you can vary the density of the string ensemble. In other words, you can have chords that are really thick. You can have chords that are really light. You can have chords that are 3 voices, 4 voices. You can have violins doing divisi and have the other instruments tacit. You could have things just with the cello and the violin. You can do all sorts of stuff within that choir of the string section as the piece is unfolding to change. It's almost like a kaleidoscope, like a unfolding waves of orchestration. And you're sort of like, there's this James Brown song called, Fred Wesley song called Pass the Peas, right? You're sort of passing the material around between all the different food groups. Well, you could do that inside of a section as well with changing orchestrations, changing articulations, changing the number of instruments that are playing. You can do all that stuff. And especially if you're doing MIDI mock-ups or your score is mostly MIDI instruments, that will add so much to hiding the fact that it's MIDI by using all the tools. That's why, as far as string orchestrons go, I really love the Spitfire chamber strings because there are so many articulations, and it really is helpful with creating mock-ups and finished product also. But what Bernard Hermann does right here that's kind of cool is he's got these 4-chord, one measure with 4 chords, and then every measure he's changing the instruments that are playing it. And he goes through this once, and then what he does is he doubles the length of the passage here, and he doubles it here, and instead of passing it around to just the bassoons, he passes it around to all the winds. And then he ends with just the brass and then the final wind chord here. And, you know, so it's very simple. There's nothing really intense going on here in terms of 5 million notes. It's very simple, but it's very direct, and it's a really interesting way to take a look into the mind of somebody who was a master of their craft and see how they created music that was probably played the first time through correctly. You know, they probably got the take the first time. Very easy, very effective. And how they were creative, how they kept interest without getting in the way if there was dialogue or anything else going on, just to create this mood and change the character of what we typically think of as sweet and pretty chords, the major seventh, right? By changing the pitch register, changing the orchestration, and how those chords are voiced with the fifths in each one of the sections like that, and how that helps for them to speak. And it's just a great little study. Anyway, there's materials in the description box below that you can download for free. I just wanted to make a short presentation with this because it's not going to be up on my film scoring class for the semester. And I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, if you like this video, give a thumbs up. For more content, please subscribe, and to be notified, ring that bell. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully my classes will be up at the end of the week for this week. And I've been Pete Calandra, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much.